Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success and what they have learnt along the way. Welcome everybody to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today I'm delighted to introduce to you a fellow Aussie. Her name is Annie Bourke, and Annie is from Cosmic Heart Intuitive. She is a Brisbane-based international author who's also an animal communicator and medium. So if you've never actually met or heard from an animal communicator, you're going to find today's discussion super interesting. She's a fascinating woman. So she's had conversations with hundreds of animals, living and in spirit, and she conveys messages to and from them to their humans. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from Annie about how she actually does that. How does an animal give a message back via her to their humans? And she's also super passionate about being a voice for these animals, that they were able to then convey their message via her. So I'll let her do all the talking because she's going to do it much better than I can. Welcome to the program, Annie.
Thank you, Annie. It's lovely to be here. And welcome to all the listeners too. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to tell people more about animal communication and animal mediumship. So I first started animal communication years ago. For as long as I can remember, I've thought that my cats could understand every word I was saying, and it was so frustrating because I wanted to know what they wanted to tell me, and I was sure that they were trying to tell me something. And I had a little ginger cat who suddenly passed away after a very short illness. And at the time, I just really regretted that I hadn't made the effort to try and find out about animal communication. So when she passed away, that was my motivation to start looking at what I could do. So I searched online for animal communication classes, and I found an online class, and the cat on the page of the website was the spitting image of my cat. And I thought, here's a sign that this is what I'm meant to do. And at that stage, I had two cats with me, and so they became my teachers. They were really patient, very tolerant. So I had to do a number of exercises of sending them images and words and colours and shapes and all sorts of things, and then asking them to send those kind of things back to me to make sure that I was on the same frequency as them and that the messages were getting through. So they were just invaluable in helping me how to do that. They were very sneaky as well, because I used to communicate with one and I'd tune into them and talk to them, and then I'd finish that conversation and then I'd tune into the other one and talk to them. Months later, they told me that they could both hear me at the same time and I didn't have to have separate conversations with them. So they're very entertaining, great senses of humour. So one of my girls used to tell me when I was at work that she'd done a hairball, and I'd say, "Are you sure?" And she'd say, "Wait and see." And I'd get home and there'd be nothing. She was just teasing me. So some of them really do prank you. They really have wonderful senses of humour. They all speak in different voices like humans, so you can hear all different tones and inflections. So some of them sound very posh and very like English upper class. I had a cat recently who spoke to me. His mum had asked one particular question about why he liked playing with water, and a lot of cats do like playing with water, and so she wanted to know why he liked sloshing it everywhere. So he told me, and I said, "Oh, is there anything else you'd like me to tell your mum?" And he said, "Does she want an existential expose on the physics of displacing a volume of water from the bowl with my paw?" And I thought, he sounds as though he's been a professor before. It was just totally unexpected. So you never know what they're going to say. I had to ask a horse about some bridling equipment because her mum wanted to know whether she wanted a bridle. Apparently you can get some that don't have the metal in the mouths, and some of them don't like having that pressure in the mouths. So anyway, Mum had offered to get her this bridle that doesn't have the metal in the mouth, and the horse started singing Alleluia to me. And I wasn't expecting to go, Alleluia. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going to come out next?
A happy horse.
Oh, it's just so unpredictable. You just never know. And look, they just make me laugh with what they say. I've also had the opportunity to speak to a lot of animals who have been abused or traumatised in their past or been fostered and then gone on to their forever home from there. So sometimes their stories, if they wish to disclose them, can be really heartbreaking. And animals talking to you is a free will thing, so I can't make them answer the questions. It's up to them if they want to talk to me or not. I've never had a domestic animal refuse to talk to me. They're just so keen at the opportunity to talk to their human parents and answer their questions, but also pass on what they want their human to know as well. So if an animal refuses to answer a question, then I just have to respect that, and I'll just let the parents know that they didn't want to talk about it. Sometimes that past trauma is just too raw and they just don't want to open that up and talk about that, and that's their choice. But usually they're just so interested in what's going on in their human's life because they're so intuitive and very intelligent. They know what's going on, so if we're upset about something, they'll pick up on that. I was asked to speak to a dog whose behaviour had totally changed, and he used to be very affectionate, and suddenly he'd got very kind of snarly and grumpy and not his normal self at all. And the vet had actually put him on Valium because they thought he was depressed. And he said to me that it made him feel vomitous and woozy. They were his two words. And when I asked what was going on, he said that his human had lost 3 friends in close succession, and she was grieving and she was depressed. And so she was the one with the depression. And because she was so upset, she wasn't doing her normal interactions with the dog. And so he then changed his behaviour because the only way he could get a response out of her was by being naughty and, changing his behaviour to try and get some attention. So once we worked on the mum and gave her some support, his behaviour changed within 24 hours, and then he was gradually weaned off his medication. So I'm not saying that animals don't need to be on medication, but we do need to dig a bit deeper and find out what is behind the behaviour changes. The other interesting thing that I've discovered is that animals take on our health issues sometimes, because sometimes they've come into our lives to be of service for us and to help us. And so without us even asking, they'll just spontaneously take on some of our health issues so that we don't have to bear the full brunt of that. So when I wrote my books, I went on a book writer's retreat, and just before I went, I got a really bad chest infection and I was really unwell. And the next thing, Tierney, who's my lovely cat up in the picture behind me,
gorgeous,
he got a chest infection. And he hadn't been anywhere to get a chest infection. They're inside cats. None of the other cats were sick. And so he'd taken that on for me so that I would get better quicker, so that I'd be able to go over to the retreat and do what I needed to do. So that was his way of supporting me. So, of course, I had to thank him. He hadn't really thought it out because it meant he had to be dropped off at the vet every day and have some like cat Panadol to get his temperature down and help with his lungs. But it was just very noble of him to do it. And I've had another cat taking on symptoms for me as well. And when I finally worked out what was going on, I said, it would make me so less stressed and much happier if you were happy and healthy. I really want you to be happy and healthy and not take stuff on for me. And she said, are you sure? So that was her level of dedication. She was happy to keep doing it to help me. So that's another interesting thing I find out when I talk to animals, because they all come into our lives for a reason. Like, we might think they're rescuing them, but a lot of times they've come here to help rescue us. So they're all souls on journeys like humans are as well. So some of them have come here to help us experience unconditional love, and that's what a lot of us get from animals as well. And for some people who are living alone, that may be their only experience of receiving love. So it's really important to understand and acknowledge that. Some of them come to protect us and guard us. So it's interesting, a lot of animals will stand near the doorway and let their owners know if they're not happy with the energy of the person that's coming into the house. So they pick up on that energy. Some of them are here to teach us. So one of my cats knows a whole lot about crystals, and I use crystals as part of my healing work for animals and for humans. And so I can say, this person's got X, Y, and Z. What do I need to use? And she'll tell me, and I'll look it up in my crystal book and exactly what it's needed for that condition. So a lot of them are here to be teachers, and they have to wait till we wake up and work out that that's what they're here for. So I had no idea that she was here to be my teacher. And I spoke to another animal communicator at a festival, and she said, oh, she's waiting for you. She's ready to teach you. So I connected with her and said, oh, I understand you're here to teach me. Thank you. And she said, about time. So she'd been waiting patiently until I put all the dots together and worked out. So I think there's a lot of animals all around the world that are waiting for their owners to wake up spiritually and work out that their animals are there with them for a very special reason and to help us. So it just opens up a whole new world.
It certainly does open up a whole new world. You're telling me that a lot of them have this tone. It's like they are. What you're saying is the message I'm hearing is that these animals, whether it's a cat or a dog or a horse or anyone, actually is on what we'll call a soul journey, and we'll explore what that is. But they're there going, hello, talk to me. I'm here for you. I'm here to help. And they're all having their own personality, tone, relationship with you, like people do. Like people enter your house and they'll all have, well, I've been your best friend, so you finally asked me, that sort of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Going, well, you've finally clicked in. I am actually here for that purpose.
Yep.
You actually feel that tone or hear it audibly.
Yep, and you sense it, you'll feel it when you look at them and how they look at you. A lot of people know from looking at the eyes, they say that the animal's really trying to talk to them. They can just feel it's palpable that they're trying to get a message across to them. Not everyone will learn how to do animal communication, so our animals know that, but they can get around that and do what they need to do. But after someone's had a conversation with them, the whole dynamics of the relationship changes. And all of my humans that I've spoken to, their animals, have told me that their relationship has deepened. There's been a lot more affection. Like the animal now knows that you know what they know. Yeah. And they feel very grateful that you've made the effort to want to ask questions and find out what's going on in their world. And often they've been bursting to tell their humans things as well. And that's their opportunity where they can just say, and because they're so intuitive with our energy levels, they know when we're not well. And so we normally vibrate at a certain frequency, and once we start to get unwell, our frequency drops and our animals pick up on that. So they will hang around. They'll be a lot more affectionate. They'll be lying near us. They'll be wanting to touch us, and it's their part of trying to be protective and helping us through that illness as well. So they can sense, as I said, if they don't like the energy of the person coming into the house. I've got one lady whose cat will let her know if he doesn't want that person in the house. Some people's dogs bark because they don't want that person in the house. So they can just know if someone's coming in with a lot of negativity around them, they will pick that up.
Yeah.
They're real little barometers for us, and it's still part of their work in trying to protect us.
Yeah. Oh, they certainly are. I notice in my house, we've got two cats and a dog, and that's it. The dog barks ferociously for some people and not for others. Obviously, once they've seen them once or twice, they're now thinking, okay, they're a familiar person that my family seem to let in. But I find that interesting. Another thing that you said before, I think you said they're always watching you. That's true. So my husband, for example, when my husband goes away and travels, he'll then the moment he can virtually just be at the car, and our dog will jump on my bed, and because he loves it, because while he's away, if he's away for a week, I let him on the bed, but my husband doesn't let him on the bed. And it's so funny. It's like watching the behavior. It's like, oh, he's gone. on the bed, or the cats will do the same. Suddenly the cats will just be a lot more sitting on the couch with you, whereas he's a bit more, get the cat off, like whatever. So even though he loves them in a different way. And then also the cats, because I've got five children, but a couple still live at home. It's really interesting of who it's the same cat, but they love spending a lot more time with certain whether they've got that connection or they just love their presence, or what you're saying, their energy. It's really interesting that they certainly choose favorites, and I'd love to explore that with you. Is that they choose a favorite because that person actually is just happy to spend more time, let them on the bed, get more away? Or is it actually you're saying, no, they were chosen almost to be there, and it's not just us loving our pet. The message I'm hearing from you is a bit that pet is here for a reason for that person. Is that what
Yes.
Yes. Correctly?
So it's really interesting, especially I've spoken with a lot of people with children with different medical conditions, and so they've deliberately gone out and got a pet to help support the child, and they are just so intuitive and know what they need to do to support the child. So they have a very special close bond. So yes, the cat can love you, and you're probably the person who does the feeding and does the grocery shopping and gets the cat food and the cat toys and everything else, but they just know. And I've been volunteering at a horse sanctuary where they've got horses who have been abused and traumatised, and they're working with children and humans that have been abused and traumatised. So that emotional healing that needs to happen, the horses just can sense who they need to go to and who needs the most support and time with them, and they'll let them touch them and do all sorts of things, which is a huge amount of trust for the animals if they've been abused by humans before. But they're very bless you. They're very powerful healers. A lot of animals are healers, so spending time in their energy field changes the vibration in our energy field, so that helps heal us as well. So yes, if your cat is drawn to a particular person in your house, it probably is that they've picked up the energy that person really needs them, and they need to be working with them for a specific reason.
Yeah. What I found is also they adapt almost like the personality or true owner. That's right. Like I'm the mum of the house, so I feed them, clean all the bowls, do all the bits and pieces, and they love me. But one of my daughters, while going through a significant trauma, when she was sort of getting through that, we bought this kitten. So her name is Ches, and so she's actually, the older she gets, the more and more like my daughter she becomes. Even the physicality of it, her shape, her style, her energy levels. It's just really like, we laugh all the time going, this is so, Hannah's cat. It's just really funny. Whereas the other cat is a lot, very different temperament. So we've often joked in our family going, that's right. Is it that they become like their owners, or is it that she was just a tabby and the other one, is a lot more sort of prancy and a totally different type of cat, if you like. So it's a fascinating world that you're in.
Look, I think all of them have completely different personalities, just like humans. And some of them will know when we're feeling unhappy, and so they'll do something really wacky just to make us laugh. And they just know how to change the mood and what to do to support us. But yes, some of them have really intimate bonds with that person who really needs them on a mental or emotional level, as well as the physical healing they do for us as well.
Okay.
So they're just very, very attuned to that, and they will just watching them anywhere I go, just watching who they go to, there's things that they pick up. So
I'd love you to tell the listeners then, when you mention an animal is on a soul journey, this, what does that even mean? What does that mean to you, so that they can understand that?
Right, okay. So my understanding over exploring lots of different facets of spirituality over more than 10 years now is that animals and humans have souls. And so from my experience, all the souls have lessons to learn when they come to Earth, and so they're on a soul journey or a soul purpose. Sometimes it takes us a while to work out why we're really here. So to me, life isn't just about being born, living and dying. We're here to make a difference, and we all have passions and we all have a purpose for being here. And so animals are souls that have chosen to come into this lifetime as an animal. Right. So some of my conversations with them, they've actually been a human in a past life before. And so some of them have had a human relationship with us before. So, for instance, your cat may have had a relationship with your daughter in a previous life. And so therefore that bond is really strong because they've had that connection before. Now, a lot of people may not be aware about past lives or be aware of reincarnation or understand that that is something that actually does happen. And I had no awareness of this either until one of my cats did it. And she was perfectly healthy, and one day she just got up, she looked really weird, and I said to her, "Are you okay?" And the next thing, she just screamed and she dropped dead. She had a heart attack. And it was a huge shock because she had no health problems, no heart problems. And I thought, what did you do that for? And so I said to her, what did you do that for? Because I didn't know how long I'd have to wait to be able to talk to her when she passed over. And she just said, oh, I needed a new body. As though, isn't that what everybody does? And she just told me to not be so sentimental and that she was coming back, and she told me what she was going to look like. My boy cats at the time weren't worried at all. They weren't stressed. They weren't moping, and they just told me we've just got a brief reprieve before she's back to boss us around again. And so they knew, and they knew when she came back to visit us energetically as well. I could sense that she was in the room. And sure enough, she came back. I'd contacted the breeder and I said, this is going to sound really weird, but you're going to have a kitten that looks like this, and it's really important that she comes to me. And she said, don't worry, you'll have her. And in fact, she'd already been born and I didn't know, but I had to wait until she was ready. And then she sent me a picture and said, is this your cat? And it's very similar mannerisms, where she sits, how she interacts. It's just really interesting. So her soul journey last time was to learn about accepting love. She was very independent, which is very unusual for the breed. And so I just kept persisting with her, and I said, I love you, and I'd love you to be able to show that love to me when you're ready. And in the end, she ended up being smoochy this time back, because she's a higher evolved version of herself, and she's learnt her lessons. She's really smoochy. She loves lying on top of me and licking my nose when I'm lying down. Like, she's just really learnt her lesson. And she could have stayed on the other side and still kept teaching me from there, but she wanted to be back with me and her brothers physically and have another lifetime. So that's her soul journey, to come back and be with me. As I said, some of them are here to teach their humans, and it must be incredibly frustrating for them that we take so long to get the message that that's what we're here for. But they are very patient. Sometimes they may have been abused in a past life, and so they've come back this time to experience what it's like to be in a loving family where they really are loved and nurtured. I've spoken to a dog who'd been from foster home to foster home, and the original home hadn't been very well looked after. And so he'd learnt that to get noticed and to get any kind of interaction with a human, if he was naughty, he'd get that. And so he'd learnt to misbehave, because that was the way that the human would say, oh, stop being naughty, and, give him a pat or something. So when I explained that his current owner was his forever owner, and he was now in his forever home, and that he didn't have to keep being naughty anymore, and she wanted him just to be happy and relax and, enjoy being a dog, he just said, oh, that's overwhelming. Like, he was just in such a pattern now of being naughty that it was just so foreign. He was just expecting that he'd be there for a short time and then she'd kick him out and he'd be on to his next foster home. So, yeah, it's very interesting when you find out what's actually going on. So for him, it's learning how to trust the humans when that trust has been betrayed, being able to trust and to love and to have that security. And for some of them, it takes a while to build up to that. So I've spoken with another dog who'd been was a rescue dog, and she had a lot of emotional issues, and so it took a long time for her to really bond and trust her parents. But once she did, her character just completely changed. She was just so confident, so hilarious, and she used to love going to dog cafes with them, and then she'd suddenly lie down on her back to get her tummy tickled, and her poor parents are trying to eat, and here's this huge dog lying on the footpath saying, yeah, love me now. And she laughed. She showed me her laughing, and it was just the funniest thing watching this great big dog, thinking it was hilarious that she's got her humans wrapped around her little toes. So seeing them blossom and seeing them get their confidence and being able to enjoy life fully as an animal is just something really special to watch. So yep, that's part of doing the relationships. Now, you did ask me before and I got sidetracked, so my apologies. When I connect with animals, it's telepathic. So you're not actually saying anything out loud at all. So you're actually connecting with their energy. So it's like mind to mind or heart to heart or soul to soul. So I do readings from photographs. So most of the times I never meet the human owners and I never meet the animal. So I just get sent a photo of the animal, like Tierney up here. And so I connect. I like seeing a face of the animal so I can connect in through the eyes. So I just tune into their frequency. And then I can introduce myself to them. Most of the animals I speak with, it's the first time they've ever had a human talking to them. So
exactly. They'll be like, what?
They're very, some of them are, but most of them going, oh, cool, wow, a human who talks animal. So I introduce myself and say that their human wants me to ask them some questions, and is it okay if I do that? And so it's the animal's choice, and as I said, all of them are really happy to have that conversation. And then it's just asking the questions and they have an opportunity to answer. And then I also ask them if there's anything else they'd like their humans to know, because even though the humans have asked a lot of questions, there may be something that the animal really wants them to know. And so I'll ask that as well. And then it's getting confirmation of that. So I spoke last week or the week before with a horse who's never been in a horse float before. And her mum is about to move property, so the horse is going to have to get float trained so she can actually travel. And the horse doesn't like feeling confined, and she said, I love my freedom. And I explained what was going to happen, and then she understood that, you know, despite her wishes, she was going to have to get into a float. So she said if she could have the biggest, widest float possible so it didn't feel so claustrophobic, that would really help. And then she said that she would like a companion animal to be in there with her. And she said, I'd like a goat. And she told me that several times, and I thought, I don't know whether Mum's got a goat. I know Mum's got cats and dogs and horses, but not sure about the goat. Anyway, so I passed this on to Mum, and the next thing I get a photo of this goat who shared the horse's paddock for the past 2 years, and they're best friends. So that was just beautiful confirmation that, yes, she knew the goat, and yes, having the goat with her would make her feel more comfortable on this journey that she doesn't want to do. So, yeah.
Well, that must be one thing that you must have to deliberately not try to over-process then. Do you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of things don't make sense.
That's exactly right.
If you try and go, well, that can't be true, then you would then in your world would be limiting the gift that you have, you know. So it's kind of like, I don't know about the goat, but there's a goat. Yeah. Right.
And that's one of the lessons you learn as an animal communicator, is that you just have to accept what they're telling you and not to doubt it, not to judge it, not to try and interpret it and explain it to the human. You let the human explain it. I was speaking to a dog in spirit, and the mum wanted to know what it was like there and the dog said there's lots of trees. And I thought, why is that significant? Anyway, when I passed that message on to the mum, she was absolutely delighted, because one of the things they loved doing was going to places with lots of trees, and they would play hide and seek, and the dog would go and hide behind a tree and then suddenly jump out at her and give her a fright, and she'd pretend to squeal and run away. So for her, that was really her dog talking to her. So that was lovely. But one of the most profound experiences I've had was speaking with a cat who was blind, who died in tragic circumstances when his mum wasn't there. And so she had lots of questions for him. But while we were having the conversation, he said to me, "Rumpelteazer." And I'm thinking, did I hear that right? Did he say Rumpelteazer? Is he saying Rumpelstiltskin and I've heard it incorrectly? And if it's Rumpelstiltskin, what has that got to do with the conversation we're having? And I thought, maybe I've just misheard it. Anyway, he said it again really clearly, Rumpelteazer. And I thought, this is just bizarre. And I was having a conversation with his mum by messenger. So I typed in, was he ever called Rumpelteazer? And there was kind of no response for a while. And I'm thinking, oh, she's going to think I'm an absolute Fruit Loop. Anyway, then I get this message back. Oh, yes. I'd forgotten all about that. And apparently when she rescued him, he was living with a dog called Rumpel, and he used to get in trouble for teasing the dog. So he got called Rumpelteazer, but he couldn't even see the dog because he was blind.
Oh.
But that was his way of telling me that, to tell his mum that I was really connecting to him, just absolute confirmation that it was his soul that I was connecting with. Because I've never met Mum, never met the cat's in spirit, but somehow that word got from the cat into my head so that I could repeat it to Mum and she could understand what the message was. So for me, again, that's a powerful lesson in not trying to interpret or doubt or anything. You just learn over time that you just trust, and what they're telling you, the human will understand.
Yeah. And that's it too, that it'd probably be more likely, because it's got to be unique, that it's authentic and legit, right? Like if it was just a general, if you like this brand of cat food or something, like I'd be like, all right, okay, I don't think that's specifically why. I don't know you directly talking to my cat. It's like as a parent, well, what unique thing do you know about my child that other people wouldn't know, right? Not that it's like a test, but in a way it is. It's kind of like going, well, because there's such an element of trust, okay, because you're going into someone's complete personal space. This is their world, and you're given the opportunity that they have come to you for a certain reason, that they have to then trust you. And what you say is very powerful to people who love and adore their pets. What about, I know on our previous time we've chatted, you've even done work with zoos. So what sort of work would zoos have that they would then connect to you? How did they?
That was me doing a service for the animals. So the zoos weren't aware of that. So I've gone to lots of zoos, again, to practice my communication with all sorts of different species. So I talk to any animal, doesn't matter what it is. And so if they pass on messages, like I've had an animal saying that their enclosure was too cold and they weren't comfortable with the temperature, or if they want certain kinds of foods or different toys, or I spoke with a cheetah that was uncomfortable in their hips and they wanted to have a massage around the muscles of their hips. So if they've got issues where I can pass a message on to their keeper to help make them more comfortable, I'll do that. So I've done that in a few different zoos that I've gone to, and the keepers have been quite open to what I've said, which is really good too. So
I was wondering that, if that is, people who are working in zoos and those keepers super love their animals. And so what is the reception like from them? I'm assuming it's going to be really great. If it's respect and makes their animal happier or healthier, they'll always go, like you'll try anything, even if you're not a believer, then they would go, well, let's give it a go. Not going to hurt
No.
Improving their temperature or giving them a tickle or a massage or something, right? Yeah. Yep. Fascinating. So for you now, you started with cats and then you've moved to dogs, and now you're like going any animal. The skill that you have developed or become in tune with has now, like, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter what animal it is.
Oh, look, I've spoken to an emu at a zoo, and he started off going to me, woof, 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 like how they talk. And I just had to say, I'm really sorry, but I don't understand emu, but can you talk English, or can you show me little videos of what you're trying to tell me? Because some of them will actually put an image in my head or show me what's going on, so if they haven't got the words to describe it. So sometimes they'll tell me something and I've got no idea what they're trying to tell me, so I'll say, can you show me? And then I get this image in my head. So then he started talking to me in English, and the enclosure that he was in had a lot of mud in it and a lot of trees, and he wanted to be out sort of on a much grassier area, like a more natural habitat, so he didn't really like that at all. So that was what he was trying to tell me. So yeah, anything. At another zoo, I spoke with a sulphur-crested cockatoo, but he was a bird that talked out loud. So he'd go, hello, Charlie, when you walk past. And so when I'm talking telepathically, I'm not saying anything at all. So I tried connecting with him, but he didn't want to talk. So I walked away and talked to a number of different other animals and came back, and his keeper had just been in his enclosure and put a lot more greenery in there. And he was going, hello, Charlie. So I went, hello, Charlie. And he went, hello, Charlie, back to me. And so I said, okay, do you want to talk out loud? What would you like to tell me? And he just looked at me really carefully, and he put his comb up and he stretched his wings out, and he screeched and screeched and screeched as though I was doing something absolutely awful to him. And then he folded his wings down, folded his comb down, looked at me and said, ha ha. So as I said, some of them are real comedians. You just do not know what they are going to tell you and what they're going to do. And they know, that's something I haven't told the listeners yet, they know exactly what you're saying. So every word that you say, they understand. They choose whether they obey your instructions or not, like not hopping up on the table or the kitchen bench. That's their choice to not obey you. But they definitely understand everything you're saying. And because of all our words have a frequency, the more positive our words are, the more it affects the relationship as well. And particularly with their names. Some of them don't like their names. And so when I ask them, they've already got names selected that they would much prefer to be called. Mm-hmm. And so when their humans start calling them the new name, they respond straight away as though that's been their name right from the start. So I spoke with a cat who'd been called Mighty, M-I-T-E-Y. And the first thing she said to me was, I don't have an infestation. So she just did not like that name at all, and she'd picked all these oldie worldy names like Penelope and all sorts of things that she would much prefer to be called, but Mighty just was really awful. And then animals are also very receptive to what they hear us talking about them. So again, in zoos, I spoke to some crocodiles, and the female crocodile said to me, we have feelings too. We think we're beautiful. So you can just imagine that they've heard some comments from people going past, but it affects them.
How ugly, how scary.
Yes,
oh my God.
Yeah. So that affects them on an emotional level, because people just aren't accepting of them. So it really changes, how you talk to them. And how you think of names. Because I'm a communicator, I've been able to ask my recent cats what they'd like to be called, or give them a choice of names, and then just see what they'd prefer. And so that makes a real difference then when they've got some ownership of what you're going to call them.
Annie, what's the difference then for someone listening with you as an animal communicator, and then you're also saying earlier on that you said you're a medium? So mediums with humans connect with human souls in spirit, and the same thing, they can confirm which human they are with a number of questions about where they've lived and what they're dressed like and all of that kind of thing. You can do the same thing with animals. So for me, it's still communicating with the animal's soul, but the soul happens to have passed over. So again, I get a photograph of an animal who's passed over, and I do the same connection thing with that animal, because their energy is still there. Although the physical body is no longer with us, the soul endures. So I can connect to the soul, and I have a conversation with them, just like I'm having a conversation with you now, except I'm doing it with a telepathic
communication. So for bereaved animal parents, it's a real opportunity to help with the grief process, particularly if they weren't there when the animal passed away and they don't know what happened, and they might feel guilty that they could have done more. It's an opportunity just to pass on their feelings. They can ask questions, and the animals are only too happy to do that. And so for their animal, that's the first time they've had a chance to pass on their feelings of love and gratitude for the humans for looking after them too. So I recently got asked to speak with a dog who'd passed over 25 years ago, and the family had, been still carrying their feelings around about that all that time. And like, grief doesn't have a time limit. Everyone's different, but they had unanswered questions, and so I was able to ask the dog their questions and give them some solace with dealing with their grief process. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to connect with a dog who'd passed away very suddenly, and the family had no idea what had happened, and they'd been wondering, should they have picked up something? Was there more that they could have done? But when I spoke to the dog, he explained in great medical detail what had happened, and it was a really unpredicted thing. So he said, no, there's nothing they could have done. And yes, it was his time to go. And so again, that's answered their questions about what happened, and then they know that he's transitioned over safely. Another dog I've spoken to, who just passed over recently, just confirmed the other day that he's met up with one of the family's cats who'd passed over. So that was reassuring for the family to know that he's not alone, and he's got other souls around him that know him. So that's reassuring for a lot of families as well, whether it's humans that have passed over or animals, that soul is not alone.
How many times, so those people who, because obviously this is your business as well, okay, through Cosmic Heart Intuitive, and so those people who reach out and connect with you, and we'll talk soon about how they can do that, but how many sessions, if they like, how does it work? Is it like one conversation? Is it a time? Do you need to sit on a photo and really spend some time just, getting connected with that? How does it
all work?
Yep. How does it work, right?
Okay, so once the human has connected with me and they've booked their session, they send me a photo of their animal with their face, with their eyes open so I can see them, and their list of questions they want me to ask. And so I will then tune into the animal, I'll ask the questions, I'll write out all the answers, and then I send that back to the human. So that may be a one-off, and I may never hear from them again. Or I've had a lot of people that have got multiple animals, so once they've had the first reading, they then want to find out what all their other animals want to say, so they'll book me for more sessions. Sometimes I've spoken with animals before they've passed over, and then the humans want me to connect with them again once they've passed over, so I do a mediumship session conversation with them after. So some people, yes, it will be multiple sessions with different animals, and some people it might just be a one-off session and I've answered their questions, and then I may never hear from them again. But you build up a real relationship with the humans, even though you're not really connecting with them, because you're talking about their baby, and it just gives them so much reassurance knowing what's going on, and particularly finding out if there is something that's contributing to their behaviour issues or health issues.
Yeah. Well, what would you do then if you actually, so the pet was living, and that pet actually didn't like their owner. So the owner has come to you because their pet's behaving badly, but the issue is actually you're hearing this issue is with the owner. How do you deal with that? Because you're the animal communicator, but it's obviously then personal. The person who's going to pay you is actually the problem, right?
Yes.
Which would be very, very common, I imagine, that it's actually the humans the problem, not the pet.
I haven't had pets saying that they don't like their owners, but there may be something in the environment that they don't like. So some of them have certainly picked up that there's negative energy in the house, which makes them feel uncomfortable, or they're trying to protect their human from that negative energy. Some of them take a while to adjust if there's someone new in the house. So if the humans have brought in another animal, they have to adjust to sharing their space with another animal. But more importantly, they have to adjust sharing their humans with another animal, and that can be very difficult, especially if you're the only child animal and you have your undivided parents' attention, and then suddenly there's someone else in the house, and particularly if it's a little animal, like a cute little puppy, a cute little kitten, the humans are wandering around, drooling over it all the time because it's so gorgeous, and it changes how much time you have to interact with the older animal. So introducing a new animal is something you have to be very wary of. Also, if you have a baby, you bring home a baby. The cats have never heard a baby screaming before. They've never seen one before. What on earth is it? Please take it away.
Yeah.
That can really change because the noise in the house and the time you spend looking after the baby changes how you interact with them. The same if you bring home a new partner and they've got to get used to a new person in the house and, different footsteps. They might have a shaver that you've never heard the sound of before. They'll have a different ringtone on their mobile phone. Lots of different things that they have to adjust that is different in their environment because they just get used to what it is and they get used to your routine. And so that's what I say to a lot of people who are planning on getting a new animal, that you really need to maintain your one-on-one time with your existing animals. Make time for the new one, but try and do a lot of that overt loving out of
the baby. Everybody loves a puppy or a kitten, right?
Yeah. So if you try and be... Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
So try to be sensitive and do some of that overt loving away from sight from the existing animals. And it's routine things like if they're used to you getting up at a certain time and taking them for a walk or doing something, and then you're a shift worker and you change your shift pattern and suddenly you're at work at that time and they've got to get used to their walk at a different time of day, they have to adjust their routine to your routine. You are their world. So anything that you change affects them, and often they'll think they've done something wrong to upset you and that you don't love them anymore, so you've gone and got another animal to love because you don't love them anymore. So you need to talk to them. So even though you can't understand what they're saying back to you, they will understand. So with my cats, if I'm going overseas or going interstate or something, I'll say, look, I'm going away for however many sleeps it is, and I'll say I'll talk to you every day. You'll have a cat sitter coming to visit you, but I'll be away, but I want you to, not fret, don't stress, I'll be home, but you need to explain that. Or if you're going to be late home or something, I let them know because they're used to having meals at a certain time, and so even just changing a meal time can be something that they have to learn to adjust to as well. So, but it's letting them know, and you might think you're crazy talking to them when they're not talking back to you, that you can understand, but they will appreciate that. One of my girl cats, I get an animal communicator friend to talk to my cats because sometimes they won't tell me the answers, but they'll tell her, which is really funny being an animal communicator. And she told my friend that she wants to be more involved in my decision making. So I need to consult with her and tell her more stuff so that she can be involved. So, yeah, it's just really interesting what they want to do. So
interesting. So let's talk about your books then. You've got a couple of books. What are they called and how do people find them?
Okay. So my first book has got my gorgeous boy Teeny on the front of it.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Now, this is part of my life purpose, which is to raise consciousness about animals, because I really want people all around the world to understand that they do have a soul. They're not just a pet. They are a soul that's in animal form. They have feelings, they feel pain, they feel love. They're very intelligent beings, and so I want people to understand that and understand that they're here for a purpose. They're in our life for a purpose, and we can make a difference for animals when we're more aware about them. So I talk about how to accept a new animal into the family, what happens when they pass away, some of the roles of being an animal parent, including about safety with animals, because a lot of people aren't aware that lilies are toxic for cats and can kill them very quickly. There's a lot of things that are not good for dogs, and people just aren't aware of some of these basic safety issues. So I've got some of that information in the book. I also talk about the benefits of animal communication. So it's not a book on how to be an animal communicator. That might be another book, but it's some of the lessons I've learned from being an animal communicator. And then I've also talked about issues for animals in zoos and sanctuaries, so what I call captive animals, because a lot of people don't like zoos. They think animals shouldn't be locked up and they don't want to go there. But in what I call consciously aware zoos, they're trying to imitate their natural habitats and enrich them and give them quality lives. Some of them are there for breeding purposes so that we can still maintain the species.
Yeah.
And in zoos, they've got veterinary care, they've got good quality food, they've always got water, so they're not going to, experience droughts. They've got shelters from different weather conditions. So there are a lot of pluses for animals who do lead a captive life. So I've talked about that. And then I also connected to a number of our animals in the wild, because unfortunately there's a lot of things that are happening as part of human influence that are impacting on animals in the wild, from global warming to people hunting animals for sport, trafficking live animals to be pets for people, all sorts of different things that affect animals. And so I really wanted to connect with the animals, and so I asked for a spokes animal from a number of different species to talk to me so I could tell their thoughts in their words and their stories. And that was really heartbreaking, listening to some of their stories. So for the rhinos that are being killed for their horns, so that can be ground down into a powder which is used to help recover from hangovers, even though there's no medical evidence for that, a whole rhino dies so that that horn can be removed. So in some of the conservancies and protected areas now, they're actually removing the horns as a preventive to try and protect the animals so that they don't get poached, or they're painting them with fluoro paint so that then they're no use. It doesn't harm the animal, but it means it's no use for poachers. But when I spoke to the rhinos, they said that their horn is their identity. So when the horn is removed, that changes who they are.
Yeah.
And they're just devastated when they get killed and leaving their babies behind. That wasn't their choice to abandon their babies, and the babies aren't old enough to protect themselves. So it's stories like that that I find really harrowing, but unfortunately it's a reality for our animals. So I also wanted to get that word out as well, so that people know, because we can make a difference through changing legislation, through efforts with animal conservation, even taking our kids to zoos and getting them to appreciate and see different animals and know that there's more than just cats and dogs and birds, that there are other animals there, and that, sometimes the only place we can see animals now is zoos because they're not out in the wild anymore.
Tragic.
So I've got some practical things in the book on what we can do, and also some resources from different organisations that I support as well. And then my second book is completely different. So this is Evolving Hearts and Souls, The Guide to Spiritual Awakening. So when I woke up spiritually, my clairvoyant power switched on. So I could be talking to people and I'd suddenly see into their past and I'd see into their future. And I'm thinking, this is really weird, what's going on and what am I supposed to do with it? And at the time, because this was over 10 years ago, there weren't a lot of books around like new age things on what to do when you wake up. So I thought, I really need to write a book, like a dummy's guide to spiritual awakening, just so people can understand that what they're experiencing isn't them going crazy, and it's part of a spiritual awakening process. So lots of really weird things have happened to me, and I haven't written all of them in the book, but it's kind of a guide to all sorts of different things. So like understanding soul journeys, understanding the energetic bodies of our energetic layers of our body, meeting our spiritual guides who are here to help us on our journey as well, benefits of meditation. And that's one of the things I recommend people do really early, is go to meditation classes, because it really helps with connecting and getting messages from our guides, but it's also invaluable in learning how to get to a place of inner calm. And you can just switch off from everything. You're not worrying about the shopping list. You're not worrying about the mess that you've got to clean up. You're not worrying about anything. You're just totally focused on calm. And then it really helps you then with any circumstance in life, that you've got that skill, that things can just kind of wash off you and you're not taking on all of that drama and unnecessary energy that drains you. So it's a book that can be read in any order. The chapters don't have to, you can just dive in and dive out of it. But it is a very activating book. It will switch on things for people who are ready to have that awakening process. So one of the first ladies who read my book got into it about 2 hours into it. She said, I've got to go and lie down. And she had to go and lie down and process all the energetic stuff that was happening to her. And her cat and dogs knew what was going on, so they went and lay down on the bed with her. And then when she got up, she read the rest of the book. And then sometime later she thought, I need to go back and read that again. And the same thing happened. Different things switched on for her with reading the book again. So it is quite potent. So I'd warn people, if they feel as though they're, getting lots of activations happening in their heads, that to go and lie down and have a rest and just let the body absorb it if they've never read anything like this before.
And how do people find those books from you, Annie?
To order them, if they're in Australia, I'm happy if they message me from my Annie Bourke Facebook page or my Cosmic Heart Intuitive Facebook page, or they can email me on chintuitive@bigpond.com. I've got lots of hard copies I've got lots of the paperbacks here, and I'm happy to write a personal dedication for people and post them to them if they'd like that. Otherwise, they can buy either the paperback or the ebook from Amazon online.
Right.
They just need to look for Annie Bourke, Bourke, and both of the books will come up, and they can choose the ebook or the paperback.
Fantastic. Well, I'll definitely put all of your details on my podcast platform and also on YouTube, so that people, if they're wanting to reach out to you, I'm a big fan of reaching out with the author direct, because it's just so lovely, right? And getting a personalised message. But if you can't do that, or internationally, definitely go to Amazon and you'll be able to find Annie's book. So
There's also information about the books on my website, which is www.cosmicheartintuitive.com.au. So if people want to find a bit more information, then there's a few links there directly to Amazon as well for purchasing.
Terrific. So at this stage of your life career, Annie, what do you see that makes you feel, I'm feeling really successful or balanced as a woman? What does success? This podcast is called Memoirs of Successful Women, and I love the diversity of women that I interview. It's so fascinating. And so for you personally, what do you see as, I feel that I'm in my right place, I feel successful in my own way? What does that mean?
So for me, it was working out what my life purpose was, like once I woke up, working out what I'm here to do. And that was really tricky because I'm interested in so many things. I'm a healer as well. So I'm a Reiki master, I'm a crystal therapist, I'm a clinical aromatherapist. So I combine all those modalities to support wellbeing for both animals and humans. So I've been sort of like a spiritual junkie. I've gone to lots of different workshops, lots of different courses, met so many different people, just trying to find out what my niche is and how I can make a difference. And so a lot of people say your purpose is related to your passion, and my passion is animals, and it's been that for as long as I can remember. And so I really want to make a difference for animals on a global level and have people understanding more about them, and a more concerted effort to conserve habitats and to conserve species, so that we can share the planet with them. So for me, success is having people know about my work, understanding their animals better, because that just changes their relationship. So that supports the animal and it also supports the human. So it's really, and helping bereaved animal parents to connect with their animals, that's really rewarding, because it's really supports the human, because grief is a tough process to go through. And a lot of people don't acknowledge really that losing an animal is the same as losing a human. And it's an emotional bond. It doesn't matter who it is. It's a soul that you've had a strong connection with. They've made an impression on you. They're forever in your heart. And so being able to help with that process really helps me feel useful and successful as well. Plus, having the books out there so that people can do their spiritual development work as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. The message goes on, and I love that. I love your journey and how you've just, really evolved and stayed true to where you were originally, and you've just built on that and developed that, and now being, an international author and a real authority in this space, and being able to do and grow the business that you wanted to do, and equally balance that with making yourself just really personally satisfied and true to who you are. I think that's just absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for being on my program today. I really enjoyed our conversations, and I am very, very confident that the listeners will just go, wow, I'm going to go and reconnect with my pet. Just go and start talking to them and go, hello, I hope you're actually having a great day, rather than just go, hello, and then walk away.
Just telling them you love them, that you really love them, and that you're grateful for them being in your life. They will totally understand it, and it will change them, because you're really acknowledging, that they're there to be with you. It really makes a powerful difference, just those few words.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think we're all going to do a little bit more of that. And I think we're going to see great benefits for us humans as well as our pets. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes, and of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.